Normani has officially released her long-awaited debut album titled Dopamine. This comes after a series of false starts and silence. Normani ultimately revealed that she had been going through some personal troubles, with her parents being diagnosed with cancer. She also revealed that she restarted and reworked her album numerous times. The revelation of Normani's personal life led a few corners of the internet to feel that some of the media and internet hadn't extended enough grace towards her. But to be fair, while that is a very serious hardship, and it's completely understandable why someone would take time off away to spend time with their family, Normani is the one that set the precedent of a release expectation. It's not like fans or people who have been following Normani's solo career was expecting this album out of thin air. Many times throughout the years, Normani gave release time frames, and not in an ambiguous Rihanna it's coming way, but legit time frames, such as the album was coming in spring or summer one year. She would also be involved in other artists' rollouts, such as being a Chris Brown video girl or Cardi's WAP, which fueled the fire. Now, I don't think she should be villainized for taking time off, but I also don't think listeners should be villainized for expecting music that was promised to them on numerous occasions, especially when her debut single was in 2019. All things considered, this was a very long lead up to a debut album. In the midst of reworking her album, she also revealed that she wasn't a huge fan of her debut single Motivation, and didn't feel like it was a true representation of her. But regardless, the wait happened, and the wait is over. The real question is, was it worth the wait? Though Motivation was technically her debut single, her collaboration with Cardi B, Wildside, is the song chosen to represent this album. It's the only pre-release single included on the album, a song that resembles the classic Aaliyah song, One in a Million, and it's certainly a song that has grown on me with time. It's more understated, but it sneaks up on you. The other singles from the album lead into different results. 159 with Gunna feels like it's trying to squeeze some of that Wildside juice onto it, but it is utterly forgettable in every way possible. Candy Paint fares much better, as a colorful and bouncy beat, with Normani telling the audience how she can take their man. Unfortunately, the melody as well as Normani's presence is far more subdued. My biggest complaint with this song is that it didn't go hard enough. There's so many alluring aspects of the song, undercut by the singer's performance. With that being said, it still stands as one of Normani's standout songs. The album starts off promising with Big Boy, which sounds like it could have easily fit as a cut on Beyonce's B-Day album, with its horns and ode to southern hip-hop. And I wish she approached Candy Paint with this energy as well, because Candy Paint is just a little too laid back, and that beat is giving all the energy. The song still starts off strong, sampling the classic hip-hop track, Still Tippin', but it almost immediately descends into generic, sleepy, atmospheric, and sparse SoundCloud-esque R&B that peaked many years ago. Same could be said for All Yours, which was one of the most annoying attempts at a hook on the album, with a reoccurring humming refrain. The middle of the album tries to pick up the pace on the album. Take My Time is an easygoing and subtle house number, with Normani sounding a lot like Ariana Grande on this particular song. Insomnia's Normani bringing a more emotional side to the forefront, and she talks about how this person she once loved contacts her and it keeps her up at night. And I think it's an interesting concept lyrically, weighed down by not so memorable production or melody. Tantrums featuring James Blake gives the album a much needed jolt of energy, but unfortunately James Blake is really the star of the show with this song. I feel like anyone could have placed a Normani spot on this track. There's not much about this album I feel reveals Normani's personality or standout qualities. A lot of these songs I feel could just be placed on a vibey R&B playlist and sung by anyone. For most of the songs, there's not anything that makes me say, this is a Normani song. I couldn't imagine anyone else conveying this emotion or singing it better. There's never that moment on this album. Some songs are also undercut by the excessive vocal processing or Normani's more subdued approach at times. Sonically, it's largely indebted to the more understated R&B of the 90s and 2000s, so artists like Aaliyah for example, but it's a very sanitized version of that sound, that's regurgitated in a way that's far less exciting and interesting. When she leads into more colorful beats like on Big Boy and Candy Paint, I feel that's when everything becomes more memorable and personable to Normani. Otherwise, it is fairly generic, and when you couple that with the fact that there's not a lot of standout hooks, it just ends up being a very paint-by-the-numbers release, and not very memorable. It's unfortunate given the lead up to the album. While I don't think perfection is expected of a debut album, there are certain aspects that an audience looks for on a debut. Like, what type of artist are you? What are you trying to convey? And what makes you you? And while I feel Normani has definitely made it clear that she wants to be in the lane of the Aaliyahs, Beyoncés, and Janets, this album falls short on pretty much every other aspect. It almost feels like listening to an amalgamation of all the most generic sounds over the last decade or so. It also sounds very actively late. Nonetheless, the album doesn't suffer from being bad, it just suffers from being mundane, so there's always room to improve in the future. But for now, Dopamine is giving me more melatonin.